Hi, I'd like to go through the 10 Commandments of gun safety. These are some basic rules that you can use and ingrain in yourself to help prevent things like accidental discharges or damage to other people's property or your own. Before handling any firearm, understand its operation. Just like any automobile, you would never get behind the wheel of a car without knowing how to operate it and then just go driving. Guns are dangerous if you don't know how to use them properly and be safe with them. You should know exactly how the gun works, even how to disassemble the firearm, before you put it in your hand and try to use it. Treat every gun as if it were loaded. Even if you know that the gun's not loaded, even if you just unloaded it, we should always give firearms the respect that they deserve by treating them as if they're loaded and making sure that we don't point them or handle them in an unsafe manner at any time. Always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. This applies anytime you have the gun in your hand, anytime you're hunting, anytime you're at the range, or you're even carrying your firearm. Just know that a projectile comes out of the muzzle and it can do damage to yourself, to others, to property. Make sure you know where that muzzle is pointing at all times, and make sure it's always pointing in a safe direction where it won't hurt other people or other people's property. Never point a gun at anything you don't wish to destroy. When you're taking up the firearm and taking up aim to shoot something or to aim at your target, make sure you're not aiming it at anything that you don't wish to destroy. Even if you don't think there's a round in it, we don't play around with guns, so don't aim at something you might not want to kill or damage permanently. Be sure of your target and what's beyond it. When you're shooting down at the range, or at an intruder, or somebody trying to hurt you, or at game when you're hunting, it's not only important to know what you're shooting at, if you're shooting at a rock, or metal, or water, or some object that might cause ricochets that can hurt you or somebody you care about, but it's also important to note that if you happen to miss your target, or if the projectile goes through it, that there are objects behind it, and it could travel and damage something behind your target. So make sure you know what's beyond your target, so that's not going to cause damage to anything you don't wish to destroy. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. It's always a good habit to get into, just to keep your finger out of the trigger guard until you're actually ready to pull the trigger. Even when you're taking your firearm up into side alignment to your target, just keep your finger out of the trigger guard completely until you're actually ready to fire and squeeze the trigger. Sometimes, when taking your firearm out of your holster, or even just raising up the weapon to your target, sometimes we put a little too much pressure on the trigger, causing an accidental discharge. So it's a really good habit to get into, just to not even touch that trigger until we're ready to actually squeeze the trigger. Remember, once you pull the trigger, you can't take back the shot you just fired. As adults, we should know that some things in life are permanent. When the bullet leaves the muzzle of your firearm, whatever consequences come after that are permanent and are your responsibility. This is also a great thing to teach our children when we're teaching them about firearm safety, is about permanence in life and how they are responsible for every shot they fire. Never rely on any mechanical device for safety. The best safety is between your ears. That's right, people. Just use your heads. Having good safety habits is really our best safeties for firearms. Mechanical devices fail us all the time. They're great to have, but do not ever rely on them for safety. Your vigilance, keeping things in your control, keeping firearms and dangerous devices in your control, is the best safety you can practice. Right. It is your responsibility, your duty, and it's the law to make sure that your firearms never end up in the hands of children who can use them to hurt other people or destroy things. Make sure they are properly locked up at all times when they're not in your direct supervision, and that people that are not authorized to use them don't have access to them. Make sure your ammunition is locked up, as well as your firearms, and in a separate place. There are also some adults who can not be trusted around firearms. Do not let yours come in their possession. You're responsible at all times for your firearms, even when you're not around them. And finally, and one of the most important, if you see unsafe behavior at any time when firearms are being handled or used, speak up and take action to correct the unsafe behavior at once. Guys, even when you're new and you're out there and somebody's teaching you how to use firearms, even people that you trust to be safe around firearms, like your instructors, can time to time do something unsafe. Or maybe it's not unsafe really, but it just feels unsafe to you. That's fine. Firearms can be scary when you're getting into them at first, and you don't have much knowledge or experience with them. If you don't feel safe, speak up immediately. It might just save lives. Thank you for watching Second Solutions. This is Jeremy.